Hey storyteller, are you ready to submit your novel, memoir, or short story for publication? Or are you working with critique partners or co-authors on your book? If so, your editing process is going to be a collaborative one. There are a couple of word processing features you'll need to know how to use: change tracking and comments. In this digital age, most freelance editors and those who work for traditional publishing companies use these tools during the editorial process and rely on authors to respond to suggestions and revisions in the same way. That's why in this week's writer coaching session, I'm going to demonstrate how these tools work in Microsoft Word so we can make your story's journey to publication easier and more enjoyable for you. Welcome, I'm Bridget from B Squared Writer Coaching. I'm an author, editor, and your story coach, here to help you make your story powerful, polished, and publishable. First, I have a gift for you just for visiting my channel: the ultimate guide to dialogue punctuation. Dialogue is one of the most problematic areas for writers in terms of grammar and punctuation. This easy-to-follow guide will walk you through all the rules in just a few pages with examples, so you can reduce the amount of editing your story will need and give it a better chance at publication. Just click the link in the description or visit b2writercoaching.com/dialogue. That's the letter B, the number 2, writercoaching.com/dialogue to download your copy. And be sure to stay until the end of the video so you won't miss this week's Power Up, a super practical action step you can take right now in the story you're working on. We're going to cover quite a bit today, so you may want to take notes, but it may be more beneficial to save this video to a playlist so you can reference it later. We are going to be doing a demonstration on the computer so you can see where everything is located in Microsoft Word and what it looks like when we're implementing the various aspects of these features. Before we go to my computer, let's discuss when you might need to use the track changes feature and the comments feature in Microsoft Word. First of all, I use Microsoft Word because that is the publishing industry's standard go-to word processing software. Most acquisitions editors and freelance editors require this, and many types of software we can use for self-publishing our books work best when we upload our story in Microsoft Word format. Plus, this is the word processing software that works best with track changes and comments features. Many applications like Google Docs have the comments feature and they work just fine. Even Scrivener has a good commenting feature, but those applications don't have very reliable change tracking features. Besides working with acquisitions editors at a publishing house or freelance editor you may hire, the track changes feature and comments feature can also be very useful if you're working with critique partners, maybe from your local writers group, or a co-author. You may also find them useful if you just want to track the changes that you're making to your manuscript so you don't lose the original version and can decide later whether to accept or reject a change that you've made while self-editing. For a full demonstration on how to use Microsoft Word's track changes and comments features, let's go to my computer. Here we are in Microsoft Word. I'm using a snippet from a book I'm working on with a co-author, so you can see how the document will appear if you have multiple people making changes in the file. Before we get started, just a quick note. I'm recording this in October of 2022 on a Mac, so if you're using a PC with a Windows operating system or an older version of Microsoft Word, or if new updates have come out since the time of this recording, your user interface may appear a bit different, but the overall functionality will be the same. If you are using a PC, up here where these tabs are, you'll probably have a file tab as well, whereas on the Mac, the file menu is located outside the screen view of this demonstration. It's above this window on the bar at the top of the screen. To enable change tracking, we first need to navigate to the Review tab, and that pulls up the Review ribbon or set of tools that we will be using. There are lots of tools in here, but we're going to concentrate on mainly two sections: the section devoted to comments and the section devoted to change tracking. I have my window pretty wide so that we can see the panel on the right, which is our review pane, and that's where our comments will show up. And depending on your settings, you may have changes show up in little balloons or cards out to the side as well. Now, if you are working with your window not spread out like mine is, I'm going to show you how those buttons will look. Some of them may be hidden, so if we narrow our window, now we have each section collapsed into a button. The comments section is now collapsed into a single comments button, and we have the drop down arrow here where we have new comment, options for deleting a comment, resolving a comment, previous and next comments, and options for how to show the comments. Next to comments, we have the tracking button, and under here is where you have the button to turn on change tracking, the options for how the changes will appear, and the markup options. Similarly, the changes button will show us all the change tracking features. So if we click the down arrow, we can accept, reject, go to previous, and next. I'm going to widen that window so we can see everything better, and each section is no longer hidden behind a single button. To enable the change tracking feature, click the track changes button. It also has a drop down menu, so you can enable change tracking for everyone or just for you. I'm going to choose for everyone, which is the default, and now our change tracking button has a slightly darker background showing that it is enabled. If we delete a word with change tracking on, it shows up in a different color and with a strike through. However, I'm going to undo that using Command Z on the Mac. It would be Control Z on Windows. Let's say we had turned change tracking off, and if I delete that same word, it now just goes away. The change was made, but it is not indicated with any kind of markup. Again, I'm going to undo that and re-enable change tracking. What does it mean when we have a line striking through the words? This means these words have been deleted, and if we have words that are underlined in a specific color, those words were inserted. Now this goes for not only words, but punctuation marks and spaces as well. For example, this quotation mark was inserted, so it has a tiny line beneath it. If I were to delete this space, Microsoft Word underlines it because it's an error. But we also see a little strike through beneath a dot that shows a space was deleted. There are also several features we may want to use that will determine how our changes appear in our document. First of all, we're going to the viewing options here. We see the all markup in this drop-down menu. That's because that's the setting I have chosen, but there are other settings you can choose. All markup is going to show you all insertions and deletions and changes within the text, depending on what your other parameters are set to, which we'll go over in a moment. We can choose simple markup, which makes it look like any change we make has been accepted. So if we make a change, let's say we delete the word and, it just goes away. The change is marked up in the all markup view, but it just doesn't show up here. I'll show you the difference. Here's with all markup. We can see the strike through for the deleted word there. In simple markup, the changes appear to be accepted, except we have these vertical lines out to the side on the left that indicate a change has been made in this line of text. We have changes made in every line of text except the last one in this document. The bottom line doesn't have any changes, so there is no vertical bar to the left of the text. In simple markup, our comments will still show up as well. We can also choose no markup, and this will show us what the document would look like if it were a clean document. That means we've accepted or rejected all changes, turned off tracking, and deleted all comments. This is what the final version of your document would look like that you would want to send to publishers or to self-publish. The changes haven't gone anywhere. They're still marked up, just hidden in the background. This feature is fantastic if you're editing and you're working with multiple changes. Let's say we had it in all markup, and with all the colors and the strike-throughs and underlined insertions, it becomes difficult to tell what the final version is going to look like with all these changes. We have something deleted here, we have something inserted here, so what is it going to look like? We can choose the no markup view, so we can tell if in deleting something we've deleted a space that we wanted to be there, or other mistakes have happened during the revision process, which is extremely common even for editors. Often when I'm editing, I will switch between the all markup and the no markup views so I can make sure I'm creating the cleanest edit possible. Or if I receive a document from a co-author or a client and it's difficult to see how the changes that person has made will affect the document, I'll use this no markup feature. And finally, we have original. Original is going to show us the document as it was before any changes were made. In case you made a revision and you're not sure which you liked better, the final or the original, you can switch between the original and the no markup view and accept and reject changes accordingly. Now let's go back to our all markup view. Anytime we see different colors for changes, that means we have multiple reviewers or multiple people making changes in the document. In this case, the blue changes are ones made by my co-author, Rebecca. The red ones are changes that I made. We can see our reviewers if we choose markup options and go down to reviewers. Right now it's selected to all reviewers. We have the people listed and both have check marks by our names, meaning that both of us have changes that are showing up. If I only wanted my changes to show up, I could uncheck Rebecca's name and then all the blue changes disappear. They're still there. We've just hidden them from the view in the document. We're going to click on markup options and reviewers again and just select all reviewers. There are a few other parameters we can change to alter the view of the changes. In our markup options, we can choose which types of changes we want to be shown. Ink, I believe, is when you use a drawing tool like an Apple Pencil or another type to make changes to a document. Insertions and deletions, if I click this, it won't show insertions and deletions anymore, but it will have the red bar out to the left side to show that changes were made. I do not suggest unchecking this because it's kind of the point to using change tracking, to see what another person or even ourselves have inserted and deleted. Formatting, if this is checked, it will show changes that include things like changing the font size, changing the words to bold, underlined, italicized, or changing the line spacing and paragraph spacing of the document. We can choose to have our changes show up as balloons as well. If we check that, then it's going to show all of our changes as balloons, and these balloons will show the name of the person who made the change and what that change was. We can follow the little line all the way to the spot where the change was made and tell what this balloon is referencing. When you have a lot of changes, the lines all run together and it can become very difficult to tell what's what. Plus, our comments basically disappear because we have so many changes showing up in balloons. Also, it can get so crowded that all the balloons don't show up. I choose to not show changes in balloons for that reason. So I would suggest just showing revisions inline like we did before, which means the changes will show up within the manuscript itself. The other option we have for balloons is to show only formatting in balloons. So that's just going to show the changes we made to the formatting. If you have received a document that shows lots of changes from an editor, co-author, or critique partner, and you want to make revisions within the document, how would you do that? All you need to do is insert or delete text or write new text the same way you always would. The only difference will be that your changes will now show up in a certain color and either underlined or with a strike through, depending on if you're deleting or inserting text. For example, if my co-author had said we need another paragraph after this one, then I could place my cursor at the end of the paragraph, click the enter key, and just start typing. And so I'm just writing new text in my story, but it shows up in my reviewing color because change tracking is turned on, and it is underlined because this is an insertion. Now, since I just made this change and haven't accepted or rejected it yet, if I decided to delete a word, let's say I delete goes, then it doesn't have a strike through because this is still a brand new change. Let's say my co-author has made a change. She deleted the word can't, but wants to say, I don't know if I can. What if I liked the direction she's going, but I think it would be better if I changed the wording to I don't think I can instead of I don't know if I can. Even though she has made a change, I can do a revision on top of that. I can highlight the words no and if, and I could click the delete key to delete those words, which would look like this. It's now in red because my change supersedes hers because it was made after hers, and we have the strike through to show the deletion. However, I'm going to undo that, and let's say I want to replace this text. I don't just want to delete it. So I'm just going to type the word think because that is what I want to replace it with. Instead of I don't know if I can, we're changing it to I don't think I can. Because of that, no if have been deleted, so they have a strike through, and the word think was inserted, so it's underlined. Both are in my reviewing color, and there is no space between if and think because don't already has a space after it. Let's look at this in the no markup so we can see what it will look like in the finished version. So I'm going to our view options and click on no markup. That looks right. We don't have any extra or missing spaces. The reason I'm highlighting one of the words when I switch my viewing option is because Microsoft Word tends to jump around, especially if you're closer to the bottom of the page and in the all markup you had lots of changes. This part might be moved to the next page because the changes take up so much room. It can jump around and you could lose your place. So I'm going to change back to all markup. Before we move on to how to accept or reject changes using the change tracking feature in Microsoft Word, I want to point out that some editors may ask you not to accept and reject changes if you're going to be doing multiple rounds of edits with this person. The editor may prefer to accept and reject changes herself between rounds. This is the way I work with clients. If I'm doing multiple rounds, I would need to see what the change was that I originally made to know why I wanted the author to make the edit, and then I can see if that author's change works with the purpose of the revision. However, if you're working with a co-author or critique partner, or you're only doing one round of edits, then it will be your responsibility to accept and reject changes. Are you finding this helpful so far? If so, consider clicking the like button so YouTube will show this video to more writers like you. There are several methods we can use for accepting and rejecting changes in Microsoft Word. One of the fastest is to simply hover over a change, right-click or control-click with your mouse or trackpad. It will bring up a drop-down menu, and you can choose to accept or reject the change. I'm just going to accept this one. That change was accepted. If I want to reject this change, right-click or control-click and choose reject change from the drop-down menu, and we have rejected that change. But let's say you have a change to a single punctuation mark, or maybe a space that was added or deleted. It can be difficult to right-click, especially if you're using a trackpad. So place your cursor somewhere on the line, and then use the previous and next change buttons. I'm going to click next change, and it's going to highlight the very next change. Then I can choose to accept it or reject it. Another way to do this is to highlight or click on the change, and then go up to our ribbon, and we see the accept and reject change buttons. Each of these has a drop-down menu. Under accept, the same choices are available for rejecting changes as well. We can accept and move to next. The change that we have highlighted will be accepted, and then it highlights the next change, so we can choose whether to accept or reject it just by keeping our cursor in one place and clicking the accept button again, or clicking the reject button. If I click the accept button again, it goes to the next change. If we use the drop-down menu and choose accept this change, it will only accept the current change. It just kept that change highlighted and didn't move forward to the next change. Other features in the accept and reject changes buttons would include accept all changes. That will accept every change in the document, or we can accept all changes and turn off tracking. If we decide to do this, anything you do after that will just be implemented in the document. It will not be marked or shown as a change. The other option we haven't explored yet is the one that's grayed out, accept all changes shown. And what that refers to is if I have chosen to only show changes by a particular reviewer, then I can accept all of that person's changes. For example, if I choose to only show my changes, we don't have any of the blue changes showing up anymore. Then I can go to accept all changes shown, and it will only accept my changes. Now, if I go back to my reviewer options, and let's do all reviewers because we want to show Rebecca's changes now, her changes are still there, but mine have been accepted. I'm going to undo that so we can continue working. The last feature we want to cover is how to use comments in Microsoft Word. There may be times when you have questions for the co-author, critique partner, or editor you're working with. That person may have questions for you. For example, if a scene needs a better transition at the beginning, the editor or co-author can't really make the change for you. It's just a suggestion for you to do some extensive rewriting yourself. We would use comments for that. Also, your editor may suggest to move paragraphs around, rearrange sentences, or they may ask questions to clarify something in the manuscript that was vague or needs revision for the reader to understand it better, or even a fact-checking clarification. How do we use the comments feature in Microsoft Word? When we want to make a new comment, we highlight the text we want to reference in the comments, then go up to the comments section, click the new comment button, and over here on the right in our reviewing panel, we have a new box. It has my name because I'm making the comment, and a space for me to type the comment. Once I'm finished writing my comment, I need to click this little button to the right, looks like a little paper airplane, to post the comment. If I don't click that button and I close the document, the comment will be lost. When I click post, we can tell the comment has been posted to the document because it now has a reply box underneath, and when we hover over the comment, an edit button appears. So if I misspelled something in my comment or wanted to add to it, I can click edit, make changes here, and either click save or cancel, If I've made changes and I click cancel, it just cancels the edits that I've made. It doesn't delete the comment. Or we can just click save. If we're wanting to navigate through our comments, just like with change tracking, we have buttons for previous and next comments. So we can click on next comment. Because my cursor was at the beginning of the line, it takes us to the first one. But if I click this next button again, it will take me to the very next comment, and that comment will be highlighted here on the right side in the panel. The vertical bar for that comment is now dark, whereas the one for the first comment that we just made is not. So we can tell which comment is selected, plus the text highlight is darker so we can see what text we're referencing in that comment. How do we reply to comments? Let's scroll down and find one of my co-author's comments. Click inside the comment to select it, and I click where it says reply. It places a cursor in this box, and I can start typing my response. And again, I must hit the post button to post the reply, or I can click the X to delete the reply if I decide I don't want to say that after all. So I'm going to delete that and show you other ways you can reply to comments. Another option, when we see the highlighted text showing that there is a comment, we hover over it, right click or control click, and choose reply to comment from the drop down menu. It opens up that comment here on the right, and our cursor is automatically in the reply box for us. This time I'm going to respond and post the reply, and this is what it will look like inside the comment. We have created what's called a comment thread. It's sort of like a conversation. We have comments and the replies associated with them, all contained within the same box, and our dark border on the left extends down to include the reply as well. If you hover over your reply, it gives you the option to edit the reply or to delete the reply. What if we want to delete a comment? There are several ways we can do this. Right click or control click on it and then choose delete comment from the drop down menu. Another way is to select the comments, use the three dots to the side of the comment, click that, and I choose to delete the comment. Now it says delete thread. Well, this thread only has one comment, but if I came down to the comment that has a reply, we have to select the comment to do anything. I can delete the reply, or if I want to delete the whole conversation, then I go up to the three dots at the top of the first comment. The reply doesn't have three dots, only the parent comment does. So I can click the three dots and I choose to either resolve or delete the comment. If I choose to delete, it will delete the entire thread. That includes the comment and the reply that went with it. So they both disappeared. I'm going to undo that. Also, with a comment highlighted or selected, we can go up to the top in our ribbon and choose delete. Now delete has a drop down box, but if I just click delete, it will delete the comment. If I use the arrows, I can delete all comments shown if I just have the one reviewer selected. So if I had my co-author selected, I could just delete all her comments because those would be the only ones that are shown. Or I can delete all comments in the document. This is handy if you're wanting to make a clean file. You could delete all the comments this way. Also, if I'm somewhere in the file, I can click the next button. It will highlight that comment, and then I can use one of the options to delete the comment from there. Either the delete button at the top, right click or control click and choose delete from the drop down menu, or delete the thread with the three dot menu here. But what does this mean? Resolve comment. We have resolve comment here and we have a resolve button here at the top. What this means is that you have taken care of whatever was needing to be addressed in the comments. Let's say in the first comment where I suggested making a stronger transition, my client has written a new paragraph to open the scene and created a stronger transition. She's done what the comment suggested, but I don't want to delete the comment because I want to be able to reference it later. So I might choose the three dots and choose resolve comment, or I might come up here and choose the resolve comment button. I find it easier just to do it in the comment itself so that I know I'm in the right spot and not highlighting something else. If I choose resolve comment, it looks like that comment has gone away, but it really hasn't. It's just hidden. And if we look here, we have these little balloons for comments out to the side. If I click on that, it showed that we had two balloons. What I've clicked on here is the one that's in front. This is going to show the comment that was resolved, and I can choose to reopen the thread or delete the comment. If I reopen the thread, it's going to basically unresolve the comment. It's going to open it back up. I don't like how small Word is making my comments over here, so I'm just going to click on this little X to exit out of this special panel it opens up, and it'll bring my comments back up, and the one I had resolved is no longer hidden. Now let's say you have finished all your revisions revisions and resolved or addressed all your comments, and you want to create a clean copy of your document to send to your publisher or to self-publish, what will you do? I would suggest saving your document with a different file name. What I usually do is go up to the File menu and choose Save As, and then I would add .final to the end of the file name. I would keep the original file name, but just add a period and the word final to show that this is the clean copy of the document, and I would save it with that file name. Then go up to my Accept button for change tracking, click that, accept all changes and turn off tracking, and then go to the comments section and delete all comments in the document, and there we have our clean copy that we can use for publishing our story. If you haven't done so already, don't forget to download your Ultimate Guide to Dialogue Punctuation. Remember, just click the link in the description or visit b2writercoaching.com/dialogue. For this week's Power Up, practice using these features on either a small portion of your story or a completely separate document altogether. I suggest turning on track changes and practice inserting and deleting text, as well as accepting and rejecting changes. And go ahead and make some comments and reply to those comments, then practice deleting those comments. You may also find it beneficial to experiment with the various markup option views and see which one's most helpful. I also suggest creating some changes in a document and sending it to a friend or fellow writer and ask that person to make random changes in the document. It doesn't really matter if they're legitimate changes or just random things. The purpose of this is to give you an idea of what it's like to work with multiple reviewers in a document. Before you can submit your manuscript to an editor and start using track changes, it's a good idea to make sure your manuscript is formatted correctly. This is also a good idea if you're working with critique partners or co-authors, because it makes the manuscript a lot easier to read when you're editing, especially once you've started using track changes and you have all those strike-throughs and underlines for insertions and deletions. One of the components of standard manuscript format is to have your story double-spaced for line spacing. For the rest of the guidelines on standard manuscript format, watch this video. And let's power up your storytelling.